Alrighty, we are going to move on with our new read aloud, The Tale of Despereaux. So yesterday we went through chapter 1 and we met our main character, Despereaux, who's on the cover, and we find out some things that had happened when he was born. So we find out that his mother had, sounds like a lot of children, a lot of baby mice at the same time. And we learn that Despereaux was the only mouse that survived from when his mother was giving birth. And she was disappointed with how this had happened. And so they ended up naming the mouse Despereaux, which kind of sounds similar to the word desperate or disappointment in our English language. We find out that his mother is French. She's a French mouse, and he's got some other siblings that were born before. We meet his sister Merlot and his brother Furlough, and they start to observe Despereaux. And his sister says his ears are too big. They're the biggest I've ever seen. And then his brother notices that Despereaux's eyes are open. Now, this seems to be a really big problem because it says he was staring at the sun reflecting off of his mother's mirror. And they said, there's something wrong with him. Leave him alone. And then that's kind of where we left things. And his father said, this is the last one. He can't live not with his eyes open like that. And so we're going to read on with our story of Despereaux. Chapter 2, Such a Disappointment. Despereaux Tilling lived, but his existence was cause for much speculation in the mouse community. He's the smallest mouse I've ever seen, said his Aunt Florence. It's ridiculous. No mouse has ever been this small, not even a Tilling. She looked at Despereaux through narrowed eyes as if she expected him to disappear entirely. No mouse, she said, ever. Despereaux, his tail wrapped around his feet, stared back at her. Those are some big ears he's got, too, observed his Uncle Alfred. They look more like donkey ears, if you ask me. They are obscenely large ears. We looked up the word obscene yesterday, said Aunt Florence. Despereaux wiggled his ears. His Aunt Florence gasped. They say he was born with his eyes open, whispered Uncle Alfred. Despereaux stared hard at his uncle. Impossible, said Aunt Florence. No mouse, no matter how small or obscenely large-eared, is ever born with his eyes open. It simply isn't done. His Pa Lester says he's not well, said Uncle Alfred. Despereaux sneezed. He said nothing in defense of himself. How could he? Everything his aunt and uncle said was true. He was ridiculously small. His ears were obscenely large. He had been born with his eyes open, and he was sickly. He coughed and sneezed so often that he carried a handkerchief in one paw at all times. He ran temperatures. He fainted at loud noises. Most alarming of all, he showed no interest in things a mouse should show interest in. He did not think constantly of food. He was not intent on tracking down every crumb. While his larger, older siblings ate, Despereaux stood with his head cocked to one side, holding very still. Do you hear that sweet, sweet sound? He said. I hear the sound of cake crumbs falling out of people's mouths and hitting the floor, said his brother Talise. That's what I hear. No, said Despereaux. It's something else. It sounds like, honey. You might have big ears, said Talise, but they're not attached right to your brain. You don't hear honey. You smell honey when there's honey to smell, which there isn't. Son, barked Despereaux's father, snap to it. Get your head out of the clouds and hunt for crumbs. Please, said his mother, look for the crumbs. Eat them to make your mamma happy. You are such the skinny mouse. You are a disappointment to your mamma. sorry," said Despereaux. He lowered his head and sniffed the castle floor. But, reader, he was not smelling. He was listening with his big ears to the sweet sound that no other mouse seemed to hear. And we will stop here for today. So what I'm going to have you do for your assignment is I want you to look at the first 2 chapters because we've already learned a lot about how Despereaux is and how people kind of see him. So I want you to list some of the descriptions, whether that's how he looks or how other people feel about him or how he even feels about himself, and list some of those attributes, those character traits that we've learned so far. And we will continue on Monday.